A group of horse racing stakeholders have taken the boldest step of publishing a full-page notice urging the government to rebuff attempts by gaming giant Supreme Ventures to buy the 196 acres of land which houses the country's only racetrack, Caymanas Park. The notice was published in the Friday edition of the Jamaica Observer newspaper. In it, the stakeholders, led by President of the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association of Jamaica, Andrew Azar, says that the government cannot allow the property to fall into private lands. George Davis joins us to explain the issues at play concerning this developing story.
Well, Tana, it is remarkable, and the reason people may ask, this is a sports story, what is it doing in the news? Because it involves huge sums that no sport in Jamaica can even dream of. Supreme Ventures will tell you that since they acquired Caymanas Park under a lease agreement to promote horse racing in Jamaica, because some people may hear and say, what do you mean by Supreme Ventures want to buy Caymanas Park? Don't they already own Caymanas Park? No. They operate a 30-year lease with an option when that expires for another 30 years. So it's leased from the government for 30 years initially. They say since 2017, when that lease arrangement came into life, into force, they've already spent $3 billion Jamaican dollars to promote and to improve the racing product and to put it in a shape to generate revenue from it. But they say that to go further, to unlock another 10 billion US dollars of investment, well, not 10 billion US of investment, 100 million US of investment, approximately 16 billion Jamaican more. They say they can do that over the next 10 years, but only if they own Caymanas Park's lands. Now, Caymanas Park's lands, prime real estate, 196 acres is what the property covers. It has its own wells. It is smack in the middle of Portmore. Portmore is fast growing, so it's a very attractive enterprise to acquire. They say only if we own the land that we are now leasing, only if we own it can we unlock this 10 million US, 116 billion over the next 10 years. Racing stakeholders are saying, not so fast. Government, do not sell them the land. And what they're saying is this: if you sell Supreme Ventures the land, and of course, quick note, Supreme Ventures Limited, their subsidiary, Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited, are the promoters of horse racing in Jamaica. They are the ones who do the nitty-gritty at Caymanas Parks. SVRL is the parent company. So SVRL says, look, the reason why we want to own the land to unlock this investment is because SVRL has racked up $400 million in losses running Caymanas Park, and we can't continue to lose money at this level. We'd rather take that $400 million and pay dividends. So when we look at the business, we're saying we have to do something, and the only way we can do something to bring us into profitability and to staunch the bleeding is to own the property to unlock this investment that we want to make. But racing stakeholders are saying, no, government, don't sell them the land, because if you sell them the land, what will happen is this. They could very well say, you know what, racing is no longer profitable, so we're going to take the land and enter the real estate market, build prime houses, build penthouses, as is happening several parts across the world where racetracks have been closed down to make way for property to be developed for commercial purposes. They're saying that we will have no insurance against that. Caymanas Park is, without doubt, the biggest employer of labor in the whole of St. Catherine Parish. St. Catherine is large, yeah? You have to come to Kingston and look at some major government agencies like Jamaica Customs agencies and so forth who have more employees directly and indirectly than Caymanas Park. So they say if you shut down Caymanas Park and build houses there, what will happen to the tens of thousands of people who earn from Caymanas Park? So don't do that, because there's no guarantee that racing will continue as a going concern, that the lifeblood of revenue for many people, survivors in the communities in Portmore and outside, will be maintained. So don't sell it. Don't give in. SVREL must find a way to make this thing profitable or exit the lease arrangement and give it to us. And what SVRL is saying, Gary Pearce said, is, listen, I'm not presiding over a company where its subsidiary is losing 400 million in racing. So if we don't get the land, we are out. So it is a very curious place that racing finds itself now, an inflection point of great proportions. Several $100 million are involved, so it's bigger than a sports story. This is not about sport, this is about people's jobs and livelihoods. And with an election looming, the racing stakeholders, led by the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association of Jamaica, the jockeys guild, so the jockeys are signed on, the trainers are signed on, the grooms are signed on, the farriers, the guys who make the shoes for the horses, they are signed on, and the jockeys agents, all of them have their signatures here or no to the sale of the lands. So another option must be found, because this, they believe, will spell the death knell for racing in Jamaica. And SVL/SVRL are saying, well, if we can't get the land, we can't invest. And if we can't invest, we can't stop the losses. And if we can't stop the losses, we're going to leave the game. So who knows what will happen?
Association of Jamaica and Razar said that the government cannot allow the property to fall into private hands. The stakeholders say Supreme Ventures could at any time decide to close the racetrack and develop real estate on the property. This, they say, would be much more profitable.
The stakeholders say hundreds of jobs will be directly affected by this decision and thousands more indirectly. Well, in the meantime, Executive Chairman of the Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited, Gary Peart, speaking with Nationwide Sports on Friday, sought to allay these fears.
There's a critical aspect which we have indicated, which is we have asserted by way of guarantee that we'll always have a horse racing track. So whatever we're doing, there will always be a horse racing track at the facility.
Mr. Peart also says the renovation needed at Caymanas Park will only come after the group receives full ownership of the facility.
The position is very simple. The contract we have was to invest $500 million. We have exceeded that figure by at least 6 times. We're spending in excess of $3 billion. What we're saying is that whatever the additional investment that is required, it is difficult for us. Our bankers will not give us financing against a lease. So what we're saying is that we've identified $100 million US worth of funding to accelerate the development of Caymanas, but we need title to the property.
You're hearing there from Gary Peart, Executive Chairman of the Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited. Supreme Ventures currently has a 30-year lease to operate Caymanas Park. They are 8 years into their tenure, having started operations in 2017. According to Peart, his team wrote to the board chairman at Caymanas Park, Danville Walker, in April. He says they are still awaiting a response.
Well, joining us to discuss further is the president of the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association, Andrew Azar. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Andrew.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invite. Appreciate it.
Yes.
It is good to hear from Mr. Azar. So you are among those who are raising concern about the potential purchase of Caymanas Park by Supreme Ventures Limited, correct?
Yes, not only raising concern, we're 100% against it, because we believe that in the precedent to this is that in the 70s and the 80s, started under the Michael Manley government, when they left the lands out there for the stakeholders so that it guaranteed that the 196 acres would remain a racetrack. The idea is that the Jamaican government would hold this land in trust for the Jamaican people and the stakeholders, and they would then lease it out to various interests who thought they could take it and make money, but holding it, the ownership, in the hands of the people. Now, that seems to be about to change, and we are against it, because we believe that any future owner, even a board such as Supreme Ventures that is domiciled in Trinidad, and there is different constructs of a board now and in the future. You may want something today, and the construct of your board changes. Your priorities change. They may in a year or two decide in Trinidad, what are they doing with a racetrack in Jamaica? And they don't like the problems where we're, giving them down there. They may then decide to develop the lands, and that will be the end of our racing industry as we know it. And we think it's wrong. It wasn't the intent of the government at the time, and we're stridently against it. We're not against Supreme Ventures. We're not against them running the track. We're not against them making money. We're against them buying the land.
But
one of the things, Mr. Azar, because I looks back at the kind of what preceded all of this. Supreme Ventures acquired the lease in 2017, and it's a 30-year lease that should be renewable for another 30 years. So they do have a long time ahead of them. And one of the things I also recall reading was that they had a $400 million loss in 2024 in terms of what they expected to earn from the holdings that Cayman. So there are lots of things in the pipeline, but in the kind of situation you find yourself in now, and the concerns that you and the other stakeholders have raised, what are some of the solutions then that you could see moving forward beyond this moment?
Right, well, Professor. Well, let me tell you something, right?
Yes.
If you figures and balance sheets can tell you what they want you to say.
Yes.
If there's a whole joke about I don't like the balance sheet and you tell the accountant, well, make me another one. We are not so sure about those figures, and they by their own admission, right, have sales. Their sales have increased from $4 billion per year to $13 billion with a B per year. Their sales have increased to that. On that, their gross profit is $4 billion. Gross profit. Now, it takes a special talent to lose $400 million on a company that has a gross profit of $4 billion. Now, if they decide that racing is not for them, and they rather the lottery business, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a lease. They can relinquish the lease, give it back to the government, and there's many other companies out there, I think, that would be interested in leasing the land to run a racetrack with sales of $13 billion. But what is of vital importance, I think, is the history of this deal. When you say they signed a lease, yes, they signed a lease, but on signing this lease, they made certain obligations in that lease. They promised to certain infrastructural upgrades. They promised to put in an elevator, not done. They promised to put in a restaurant, not done. They promised to fix up the trainer's room, not done. They promised to fix the roads, not done. They promised to fix the stands, the entrance, the jockeys' room. Is a disgrace. Nothing has been done. You can use the Public Access to Information Act and look at the bid to Supreme Ventures. The first thing they did when they acquired the lease was it was won by Supreme Ventures. We the people gave that. We wanted Supreme Ventures to win the lease because they had deep pockets. They would then use their deep pockets to help with the infrastructure, build up the place, and provide, in their words, a first world racetrack. What they did instead was they started a company called SVRL. And they said, look, this is now not Supreme Ventures. We're going to appoint a board and sink or swim, go and run the track with that company. That wasn't the bill of goods we were sold. So, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice. It's not fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. We don't know what to believe. We don't think that we should be bullied or intimidated by threats of if we don't get the land, then we're going to give up the lease. What we want to hear is how can we sit down and work with you, compromise instead of confrontation. We don't want to sell the land. Where can we meet in between where you can honor your obligations, your promises? These are promises in writing. When you go and you look at this,
we have to take a break.
We have to take a break, Mr. Azar, so we'll come right back to you because I want to talk to you about this matter of the investment in the track as it stands now.
So we take a quick break.
And Breeders Association, Andrew Azar. So, Mr. Azar, we were speaking about the investment in Caymanas Limited. You were saying over the 8-year period that Supreme Ventures has had that lease arrangement, they gave some obligations which you say have not been fulfilled. But what you heard Mr. Peart when he was speaking with us, or speaking with Nationwide Sports, that they have
is not telling the truth. And all it needs you to do is take a tour out there. They call it the greatest place on earth. That's what they call it. Let's go out there with our cameras or our investigative journalism. Let us go to the stables and see the deplorable and disgraceful condition they're in. I mean, they're stables with my own trainer. His stable, along with many others, has no toilet. There's no basin. There's no faucets. The roads, the bridle paths are in deplorable conditions. The jockey's room, the ceiling is collapsing. They haven't had a sauna for 8 to 10 years. The grooms, they live like in a barrack.
So,
You
so,
can't
so,
tell me.
so,
I'm answering your
yes,
question that
yes.
if they can prove that they spent money, maybe they put in a solar system, maybe they're paying big salaries. I don't know what they spent the money on, but I know that the legal obligation that they made when they signed that lease, you can use the Public Access to Information Act and see the promises they made in 2017. I'm looking at them right now. Not one.
Well, not promises, but what they signed to in that document, because those are what they actually signed to. Things like the elevator.
It's a legal obligation.
Yes.
I'm saying not 5, not 4, not 3, not 2, not one of them has been completed. And we think that you don't need to buy the lands to fix the jockey's room or to buy toilets or to fix the groom's quarters. These are things that people may be poor, but you don't have to strip them of their dignity. These are, and you go there yourself, and you can see is it the greatest place on earth. Mr. Pierre said that the money they spent out there, he said in a newspaper interview, I've spent money in Ghana, and I've made X return on my investment. I've spent money at Caymanas Park, and I'm losing. Then, my friend, go and open a racetrack in Ghana if it's not working for you out here. I don't know what to tell you, but all I can say is that I speak for my groups, the grooms, the jockeys, the farriers, the agents, and they're not rich people parading us that they're in poverty. These are people that they cannot make ends meet. And don't ask me if I'm sorry for Supreme Ventures losing $400 million, which frankly I don't buy into. I'm sorry for my members that on Thursday can't buy food. That's who I'm sorry for. We're asking for a purse increase. We're asking for better conditions at the track to work under, civil conditions, not silver and gold. We're asking for toilets, running water, faucets, basins, fix the roof. That's what we're asking for. I'm not sorry for you. I'm sorry for my people.
So, and I'm looking at the notice that was put in today's newspaper. Trainers Association, the Grooms Association, the Farriers Association, the Jockeys Agent Association, and the Jockeys Guild of Jamaica, along with your Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association, representing a composite of the many of the bodies, the men and women who are a part of the Caymanas Racetrack, the entire body there. And then you're speaking in a lot of ways, Andreas, are on their behalf in terms of looking at what might be an impending shift, because one thing that comes out, I think I read it or heard it in one of the conversations, that there is some concern that these different groups, including your own body, has regarding what might happen in the future if SVRL / Supreme Ventures actually purchases the lands. So what? Yes.
Professor, there's right now in America, right? There's the biggest owners of racetracks, the Stronach Group. Mr. Stronach loves racing, built Gulfstream Park and many other parks. His daughter, he's older now and sick. His daughter has come up, and the track is situated in Golden Isles Zone on Hallandale Beach Boulevard. Very, very valuable land. She has stated publicly she wants to close one of the most beautiful racetracks in America to build condominiums, which would be 50 times more profitable. Now, that's bad for racing in America, but they have 50 tracks, so it won't kill them. We have one track. We have to defend that one track. the industry that is so culturally and historically important to our people, and we cannot leave it to one private sector interest, whether it be Supreme Ventures, you, me, or anybody else, to their whim to decide, do I can't take it anymore, do I want to lock it down and build a mall or houses? And you can go out there right now. This has been tried before. There's pipes laid out there where this was tried by a group before. It is very valuable land, and if the government so much wants to give them land, then I'm sure there's much sugar lands out there. They can give it to them free if they want to, and let them go build their own racetrack, or the option is still there for Ghana.
Tell me, Mr. Azar, I don't know if Supreme Ventures Limited is raising this as a concern in terms of the viability. According to them, they can't take it any further without having that full ownership, as they stated. Is there a concern about the viability of the horse racing genre in terms of going forward in Jamaica? Or is there more to this than simply, well, we can't make the investment because we don't have a deed to the land?
Okay, that is a red herring. When they signed that deed, there was no mention about buying any land. There was more people in suits out there that day doing their due diligence than the Lord would preach about. So they knew what they were getting themselves into. They got a lease, they were going to run it, and they were going to make money. And no, if they have changed and they backtrack and they want to buy the land, then don't threaten us and say it's either buy the land or we're going to do this. Maybe there's something in between. Maybe you could buy 2 or 3 acres if you want to. And I'm just speaking, it's not my land, but I'm just saying that there would be, if I speak on behalf of my groups, we're not just saying there's no deal to be made in between. We are against the outright sale of the 196 acres. If they come and want to buy a couple acres to build their corporate offices or a hotel or something that's good for racing, I'm sure we'd look at it and listen to them. But don't come and threaten us and intimidate us with it's either one or the other. Because there is something in between. You can give up the lease and there's somebody else that will take it up.
So there are solutions, because I think one of the challenges that will come up in the conversation is what are the solutions and the best way forward, not just for all the groups that are involved at Caymanas Park, but also for the wider bodies, all those people who sell at those shops, and the punters, everyone all over Jamaica who are involved in the sport of King. So solutions, we have about a minute left. Solutions.
I'm going to say a solution,
yes.
In the history, they've used a weapon on the stakeholders called divide and rule. Everybody has been divided at Caymanas Park. For the first time under our leadership now, we've come together and there's a tremendous unity between all of the stakeholders. We welcome the opportunity to sit with Supreme Ventures, and we don't want confrontation, we want compromise. That's what we want. And we want to sit and speak to them, but we don't want to be spoken down to or disrespected. Look straight at us across the table, and we're willing to negotiate with you on all matters. Purses, the state of the plant, but not really about this outright sale of the land. That's off the table as far as we're concerned. But we can meet somewhere in between, and we'll sit and talk.
Good point on which to end. Thank you so much, Mr. Azar. Thank you, and all the best for you and all the stakeholders at Caymanas Park and everyone across Jamaica who are involved in different ways with the racing industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invite. I much appreciate it and the opportunity to tell our side.
Thank you.